Well, I've got a bunch of plywood here that I got from a fella that was reducing his inventory. He'd been building a bunch of cabins and stuff for a fishing lodge, and they kind of quit doing that. Well, anyway, he had a whole bunch of building supplies for sale, and I got some windows from him and a bunch of plywood here. I've had this plywood stacked up and bundled up and covered up in the back corner of the property here for several years. Well, we had a whole bunch of other stuff in front of it and we couldn't get to it. Well, sometime this last summer the roof come loose or something, and anyway this plywood started getting wet. I made a nice pad next to where I put the septic tank in there and put those old floors that I had in the bathhouse down over there. We took a bunch of that stuff that we had back here on this other pad and stacked up there, which gives me access to this plywood. Brought it over here in the hangar, and I've got to stack that stuff and sticker it. Now most of it looks like it's pretty good, but it's really hard to tell with that plywood because the water will leach in there between each piece of plywood, and they're sitting tight down together, and then it'll sit there and it just rot the plywood. So anyway, I've got to do something with that. Oh, I got a bunch of 2x material that was already cut to 4-foot lengths, and I just ripped it down to 3/4 inch widths to use for stickers. And then I had some other 2x material in my wood drying shed, and I ripped that down. So I think I've got enough stickers now for that first rack of plywood there. I think there's 20 sheets there in that first bunch. I think those are 3/4. Anyway, it's too valuable to let it sit there and rot. Now I've got enough stickers to sticker that. I'll have to dig out some more 2x material and rip down for stickers for the rest of it and get it done. But I think I'll call a friend of mine to help me transfer those sheets down and stack them up on the floor with stickers in them and get them a chance to get dried out real well. I dug out that 12-inch radial arm saw to rip those down with. I've had a 10-inch Craftsman radial arm saw for 50 years, and I've used the heck out of it, and I've ripped a lot of lumber down with it. Problem is, when you start ripping 2x material down with it and heavier stock like that, the motor would heat up, and you'd only get a certain amount of it done before the thermal relay on the motor would kick out, and then you'd have to wait for a day for it to cool off enough to get it started again. Well, I bought this 12-inch Craftsman radial arm saw from a fella several years ago, figuring it would be heavy duty for ripping down this 2x stock and stuff. But it didn't have a table on it, didn't have a good table on it, so I hadn't had time to build a table for it, so it's banged around in here for several years. Well, this last winter I was getting ready to get the basement cleaned up to put the wing of the airplane in there, and I made a new table for this 12-inch radial arm saw. I just ripped up a whole bunch of 2x material on it, and it worked fantastic. The 10-inch radial arm saw would have quit before I got halfway through what I did on that. So that 12-inch one has met its purpose. It's paid for itself. Well, it hadn't paid for itself yet, but anyway, it proved its worth there. Well, I've got it set up for a rip cut, and I cut all the 2x's down into 4-foot lengths, so it wasn't a real long rips or anything, but there were multiple rips, 34-foot 2x4s and 2x6s and stuff that I ripped down. Some of them were thicker, some of them are 2.5 inches thick or so, some of the raw stock that I've got that come off of the sawmill. Anyway, that thing never missed a beat. The only problem on it is that phony splitter that they've got on the back there. It hangs down on a little arm to split the wood as it goes through there, and then it's got anti-kickback pawls on it, and those doggone things on those radial arm saws never line up with the blade. So I always have a heck of a time with those. But that was the only problem I had with it. Otherwise, it worked great. I had cut a whole bunch of stickers a few days ago before I started planing down these boards and stuff, because I've got these piles of plywood. I had them all covered up real nice and stuff out on the back corner of the property, and everything was fine on them, and then the cover kind of got knocked off on them and I couldn't get back to them, and some of them got wet. So we fished those out of there, got everything changed around, and was able to fish those out of here, stuck them here in the hangar, and I cut a bunch of stickers. I had a friend of mine come over yesterday while it was raining, and he helped me move the top 20 of those, and we got those stacked up and stickered. Most of them were in pretty good shape, but when we got to the bottom of the pile, there was 4 or 5 of them, or 3 or 4 of them that had gotten a little bit wet in the ends of them on this end down here. So it's a good thing we got those opened up and stickered. The next pile there should be pretty good. I've already had stickers in some of those, but that was in the middle of the pile and it was still pretty protected. But I need to get some more boards out, cut some more stickers so we can move that pile over, get it stickered up. And then the bottom pile down there, that's 1/2 inch plywood, and that was on the top of the pile. Some of those are pretty nasty. Some of those got pretty wet, so I've got to get that top layer cleared up and moved over and stickered and stuff so I can get to that layer of 1/2 inch plywood down there. That stuff's too valuable to let it go to hell. So we got a little bit of work to do left yet to do, and I can do that in the rain. I just have to go up and find some more boards that I can cut up into stickers. So I'll get cleaned up what I got done here now, and then I'll go work on finding something to make stickers out of. Well, that god darn splitter is just going to cause trouble after trouble. It doesn't quite line up with the blade, so the boards hit it, and then when they hit it and you jam it through, then it moves the guard so that it comes down on the other end. And anyway, that's the only real drawback on that saw is those splitters. So I'll see if I can't get that thing set up and working a little better. That 12-inch radial arm saw really cuts nice compared to the old 10-inch. The 10-inch cut nice, but it just wouldn't have handled a whole bunch of this 2-inch thick or this thick material. Not like this thing does. So this eats right through them, except when it gets jammed up in there going through that splitter. So I'm gonna fix that and then just keep cutting wood here until I get all these whittled down. Alright, hopefully I've got that taken care of. I took that splitter itself and the anti-kickback balls off of the stud that was holding them onto that arm, and I went into my aircraft hardware supply and dug out some 1/4 inch washers and made a spacer there and pushed that out, so that looks like it lines up with that blade a lot better now. We'll give it a try. Well, the splitter works perfectly now. Didn't even feel it go through there. Didn't have to bounce or anything else for that. It worked just right. Notice I was spitting a lot of sawdust out of there, so the outlet for the sawdust pickup was plugged up, so I got that fixed. We'll see how it works now. Well, that went pretty good. I got 13 stickers out of that one plank there. I got 2 more of those to chop up. and I had 26 out of the first ones that I did. So that'll give me a pretty good number of stickers. I've got some in the plywood that I've got there now, so I should have enough to restack that next 20 sheets of plywood on there once I get those other 3 chopped up. So I just keep working on it, get them chopped up, then I can get that plywood stickered, and maybe I'll work on these other boards. I got all the boards that I drug down here cut up into stickers, and then I decided to go ahead and put them to use. I started moving the rest of that plywood over onto that other pile. I had 2 stacks of 3/4 inch plywood sheets, 20 in each stack. I restacked and stickered the first stack of it a couple of days ago when I had some help from my friend Jeff. And so today I started laying stickers on top of that pile, and I moved 6 sheets over onto that pile off of the other pile. Well, then I got to thinking the reason I had 2 piles in the first place is because that bobcat won't pick up both stacks of those at one time. So I went ahead and drug out some 4x4s and stuck on top of there, and then started remaking a stack on top of that. Well, that stack winds up being about 6 foot tall. That's just about as high as I can put 3/4 inch sheets of plywood up by myself. In fact, Judy helped me with the last couple of them. Not that she can do much. I don't even know if she can reach that high or not. But anyway, she helped. So I was able to get the last 3 sheets up there on top. No, I didn't cut enough stickers today for all of those, but I had some of those stickered from before. So with what stickers were in them from before and what I cut today, I got those all stickered, stacked real nice and neat. Well, there wasn't hardly any moisture in it. I mean, there was a couple of them that I could feel a little bit of wet on, but mostly they were in pretty good shape. But now they should be good to get a chance to get completely aired out. That moisture gets in between those sheets of plywood and you can't tell it's in there, and it just starts rotting from the inside out. So far I've been able to salvage all of those sheets of plywood. I've got the fan blowing on them anyway, just to get some air blowing through there and make sure any moisture gets evaporated out. Now I've got to get down there. I've got 20 sheets of 1/2 inch plywood left there. And then there's 3 sheets of 1 or 1.25 inch plywood down on the bottom. I had more of the 1 or 1.25 inch plywood before, but I loaned some of it to a neighbor of mine so he could finish up his house. And then he got that done, but he had a stroke and passed away. So that's the breaks. Rather he be around and still not get them than passing away and not get them, but neighbor got to use them anyway. No, I think those are all in good shape, but I've got 20 sheets of 1/2 inch plywood, and they were on the top of that stack. And I know those got wet, so I've got to go dig out some more boards to make stickers out of, to make sure and get those restacked and stickered and get those dried out, because I don't want to ruin those either. Now the 3/4 inch sheets of plywood are about 70, 80 bucks a piece here, maybe more than that now, I haven't checked. The 1/2 inch ones are about 40 some bucks a piece. So that's still 800 bucks worth of plywood or so right there that I got to take care of. That's too valuable to let that stuff go into compost. But I'm done with that for the day. Well, I finally got that last bit of plywood restacked and stickered. I did the first 2 stacks of plywood over there, the 3/4 inch bundles. There was 2 stacks of those at 20 each. And I did those last week, and they're drying out really good. Then I had this stack of 20 1/2 inch sheets of plywood there, and I didn't get to them right away because I knew I was going to have to move them over this way. I'd stacked those 2 stacks of 3/4 inch plywood up there on the stickers and stuff, and that got them up as high as I wanted to lift the plywood. I didn't really want to lift anything any higher than that. Anyway, I just got it redone and restickered, and then I had 3 sheets of 1 inch or 1.25 inch plywood underneath those. And I got those on there and stickered too. Those about did me in. Well, that 3/4 inch plywood, there was a little bit of moisture on some of those sheets there, and they're drying out pretty good now. But that stack of 1/2 inch plywood, there was quite a bit more moisture on that. I don't know whether you can see it or not, but there's a partial sheet over there leaning up against the wall. That was on top, and the dark stain on it is where the water leached in there between the sheets of plywood, and it did that most of the way down. Very similar to that. Not all of them are as bad as that one is, but it's very similar to that. Oh, the plywood hadn't been damaged yet, it hadn't rotted yet or delaminated yet or anything like that. It hadn't swelled up too bad or anything, so I caught it in time. And I've got it stacked up there now, with air can flow through it, and I've got a fan going on it, so that should dry it out pretty good. That saves that plywood from rotting. In between stacking up those 3/4 inch sheets of plywood and this 1/2 inch plywood, I worked on some 2x6s that I cut last year. They were all rough cut, and I machined those all down with the planer and the joiner, and anyway, I got the faces planed on them and the edges jointed on them and made real nice 2x6s out of them. Got those restacked and ready to use for something productive. Anyway, that took up the space in here where the plywood is now. That's why I didn't restack it over here, is because I had that other stuff over here. Well, I finished that up day before yesterday and left the mess in here. Hey, yesterday it was pouring down rain and cold all day, and I just didn't get anything done yesterday. I didn't hardly move yesterday. Today it's showery, and 1 minute it's pouring down rain and the next minute it's sun shining, but which really doesn't matter as long as I'm inside the hangar here working and dry in here. But it's cooled off from quite a bit from what it was. But anyway, that's pretty good progress there. I've got that plywood all stacked and stickered, and I got that almost 100 2x6s all machined up and ready to go. Then yesterday I was looking at and laying out plans for making trusses. I need to make a truss for the roof of the add-on to the house there. That's what I got those 2x6s milled up for. So I was looking at truss plans and drawing up truss plans and stuff for that addition, and laying out another supply list that I need and stuff, as well as a few other things. So I guess I didn't not get anything done yesterday. I just didn't get out here and get this stuff done. So this morning I came up and cleaned up my mess here, chopped up a lot of the offcuts and stuff like that were here, and got them set up for kindling wood for the stove when I get ready to build a fire in here, and then got that plywood stacked up. So that was pretty good. That was about enough. Manhandling those 1-inch sheets, it just about did me in. So anyway, my wife is complaining because the water is not working in the cabin like it's supposed to now. The water pump keeps coming on and going off and coming on and going off. The water heater doesn't come on like it should, so I guess I need to go put some air in that water pump in the bladder in the tank for the water pump. When those things start getting old, they start leaking air in them, and that's a sign that the pumps still work, but the bladders in them start getting so they don't hold air anymore. Used to be able just to replace those. Well, I'll probably have to replace it anyway, but used to be those pumps were only about 75, 80 bucks a piece, and now they're almost 200 bucks a piece. So I guess I probably better get online and order a new one. But anyway, meanwhile, I have to go over and put some air in that bladder on the pressure tank and maybe change the filter in the filter system there. But kind of hard to get motivated to do that when you hear the rain pounding down on the roof out here. I don't really want to go stand out in the rain.